Welcome to Expedited Reinstatement, a quicker, easier way to get benefits back. Before we begin this webinar, you should print or have available on a separate screen a handout called Expedited Reinstatement Eligibility Questions that looks like this. It has 8 questions to determine eligibility for Expedited Reinstatement, or EXR. And you'll need this to go through some exercises. So please pause the webinar until you have this document available. There are 6 learning objectives to this webinar. First, to be able to describe the purpose and importance of expedited reinstatement for cash and medical benefits, identify who's eligible for it, explain the criteria to receive provisional benefits. These are payments that a person can actually receive while they're waiting for a decision about whether they'll get their benefits back through expedited reinstatement. Describe the initial reinstatement period. That's a 2-year period that begins after a person gets benefits back through EXR. To explain how to request EXR and explain the benefit to work coach's role regarding expedited reinstatement. So most work incentives provide protection for cash and or medical benefits before cash benefits are terminated. Expedited reinstatement comes after those. This one helps a person get cash benefits back and medical benefits if they've already stopped, after benefits have been terminated due to earnings, but then later earnings have dropped below substantial gainful activity, or SGA. Expedited reinstatement can be used for both Title II disability benefits and SSI based on disability. That includes all 3 kinds of Title II disability benefits: Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI, Childhood Disability Benefits, CDB, also known as Disabled Adult Child, or DAC benefits, and Disabled Widows and Widowers Benefits, or DWB. A person usually has to request expedited reinstatement within 5 years after their benefits have been terminated due to earnings. So their earnings have to drop below SGA or stop within 5 years after the termination, and they have to request expedited reinstatement within that period of time in order for them to be potentially eligible. Now, if a person requests expedited reinstatement to get their cash benefits back, they'll also get their medical benefits back if they have stopped already. And the person who requests expedited reinstatement has to go through a medical review to make sure she or he has not medically improved. But while that review is in process, before any decision has been made, they can get up to 6 months of payments while they wait, which are known as provisional benefits. After EXR is approved, then the person undergoes something called an initial reinstatement period, which is 24 months long. We'll get into the details a bit later. If a person who receives Title II benefits gets approved for EXR and finishes the 2-year initial reinstatement period, they get a whole new set of work incentives: a new trial work period, a new extended period of eligibility, a new extended period of Medicare coverage. And if they burn their way through all of those, or at least through the trial work period in EPE, and they're terminated again due to earnings, they have the ability to request expedited reinstatement again if they're eligible. If a person on SSI gets approved for EXR and completes the 2-year initial reinstatement period, they are able to request expedited reinstatement again if they have their benefit terminated due to earnings again. So who's eligible for EXR? A person has to meet 7 or 8 conditions, depending on whether they get Title II or SSI. Number 1, they have to have had benefits terminated due to work. So for a person getting Title II benefits, that means they'd have to have SGA level earnings after their EPE and their grace period were over. For a person on SSI, it means their earnings would have to be above the 1619B threshold, which is $36,552 a year in 2019 in Michigan for 12 straight months. Now, most people on SSI will never earn that kind of money, especially for that long. As a result, SSI beneficiaries fairly rarely get to use expedited reinstatement, but people on Title II benefits can use it fairly often. Number 2, a person has to not be performing SGA in the month that she or he requests EXR. 3, have to be unable to work at the SGA level due to the disability in the month when the EXR request was made. But the rules actually say that unable to work is basically equivalent to not working at or above SGA or not working at all to meet this particular criterion for EXR. So it's really quite simple. Number 4, a person has to have stopped performing SGA for any reason within 5 years or 60 months after the benefit was terminated due to SGA. Number 5, a person has to have the same disability that they had before their benefit was terminated or a disability related to the original disability. 6, they have to have not medically improved. 7, they've got to ask for EXR within 59 months after the month their benefits were terminated due to earnings. Now, that time limit can sometimes be extended for good cause, but you can't count on it. So that 59-month time limit is important to keep an eye on. And number 8, this one applies only to people on SSI. They'd have to meet all the non-medical criteria for SSI. They'd have to not have countable income above the limit or countable resources above the limit to be eligible for SSI. All right, so let's go through some EXR examples and determine whether particular people seem likely eligible for expedited reinstatement. So Gilda received SSDI due to bipolar disorder. Her SSDI was terminated in March of 2015 because she did SGA after her extended period of eligibility and grace period had ended. She continued earning $2,200 a month gross wages after termination. She had no earlies or subsidies, so she was earning well above SGA. But in January of 2019, her employer cut her hours in half and said she wasn't able to keep up with full-time duties. So then she earned only $1,100 a month gross wages. And that's significantly below SGA in 2019, when a non-blind person with earnings under $1,220 a month is generally below SGA. Gilda still had bipolar disorder. Her disability status had not changed. She had not medically improved. And she requested EXR in February of 2019. The question is, was she likely eligible for EXR? Now you can pull out your EXR eligibility sheet, which will help you as we go through these questions. Same first 7 questions appear on this slide that appear on your sheet. So 1, were benefits terminated due to earnings? Flipping back, we see that yes, SSDI was terminated in March 2015 because Gilda did SGA after her EPE. So answer to number 1 is yes. Number 2, were her earnings below SGA in the month she requested EXR? Well, in the month she requested EXR, February of 2019, her earnings were $1,100 a month. That's below SGA. So the answer to number 2 is also yes. Number 3, was she unable to do SGA in the month when she requested EXR? According to the rules, she was, because she simply wasn't performing SGA. However, we could also say that it appeared to be related to her disability, because her employer said she couldn't keep up with full-time duties, presumably due to her disability. Answer number 3 is yes. Number 4, did she stop SGA within 60 months of SSDI termination? Well, her SSDI was terminated in March of 2015. She stopped doing SGA in January 2019, less than 4 years later. So she certainly stopped SGA within 60 months, which is 5 years of SSDI termination. So number 4, the answer is yes. 5, does she have the same or a related disability? And this slide says she still had bipolar disorder, disability status had not changed, she had not medically improved. So the answer to number 5 is also yes. And the answer to number 6 is yes. Has she not medically improved? Finally, number 7, did she request EXR within 59 months after termination? That's 4 years and 11 months. And in fact, she requested EXR just under 4 years after termination. Termination was March of 2015. She asked for EXR in February of 2019. So yes, she did request EXR within 59 months after termination. So answer to number 7 is also yes. Since the answer to every one of those 7 questions is yes, it does appear that Gilda is eligible for EXR. Moving on, now Iggy received SSI due to schizoaffective disorder. His SSI was terminated in August 2014 because he earned above the 1619B threshold for 12 consecutive months. Now, he continued earning $4,000 a month gross wages after he was terminated, but he had an extended hospitalization in 2019 from March through June, and he lost his job in May 2019 as a result. But he still had schizoaffective disorder that resulted in the hospitalization. He has a bank account with $1,200 and no other resources, no other income, and he requested EXR in June of 2019. So was he likely eligible for EXR? Let's go through the 8 questions. The 8th and final eligibility question is just for people on SSI, including Iggy. So number 1, were benefits terminated due to earnings? The slide explained that they were terminated in August 2014 because of earnings. Number 2, were his earnings below SGA in the month he requested EXR? The slide tells us he was not working at all in the month that he requested EXR. So his earnings were certainly below SGA. So the answer to number 2 is yes. Number 3, was he unable to do SGA in the month when he requested EXR? Well, he wasn't doing SGA, he wasn't working at all, which suffices to meet this rule, but also he was unable to do SGA because of his disability that resulted in the hospitalization. So answer to number 3 is yes. Number 4, did he stop SGA within 60 months of SSDI termination? SSDI was terminated August of 2014. He stopped performing SGA, in fact, lost his job in May of 2019, although he had stopped doing SGA in March when he was hospitalized. That was less than 5 years after the termination. So the answer to number 4 is also yes. 5, does he have the same or a related disability? It says on this slide he still had schizoaffective disorder, and it does not appear to have medically improved since it resulted in hospitalization. So the answer to 5 is yes. And number 6, has he not medically improved? That's most likely yes as well. 7, did he request EXR within 59 months after termination? Well, termination was August of 2014. He requested EXR in June of 2019. Looks like he just made it. The answer to 7 is yes. Number 8, does he meet all non-medical criteria for SSI? Well, he has no income. He's not working at this point. And his bank account is his only resource, and that's $1,200. Below $2,000, he meets the countable resource limit. And the answer to number 8 appears to be also yes. As a result, Iggy is most likely eligible for EXR. Now we'll go through several exercises. Now you can do these on your own. So for each person, you want to determine whether she or he may be eligible for EXR using your cheat sheet. You can pause once we finish reading through this slide. Look through your cheat sheet, determine whether each person is likely eligible, and then restart the webinar with your answer. So first is Lily, who received SSDI. Her EPE ended in November 2015. She had used up her grace period earlier. She earned $1,500 a month gross wages continuously after that, had no ERWIs or subsidies, so she was doing SGA, and her SSDI terminated in December 2015. In February 2019, she was fired from her job due to performance issues. She continued to have severe depression. She requested EXR in March of 2019. So please pause now and return once you have an answer. And the answer is yes. Lily appears to meet all the criteria, all the first 7 criteria which apply to Title II benefits on your cheat sheet. Second, Stevie received SSDI. After his EPE ended in October 2014, he continued earning $1,400 a month gross wages. He paid $150 a month for accessible transportation for work. That's an ERWI, but he had no subsidies. So his countable earnings for SGA purposes were $1,400 minus the $150 ERWI for transportation. That equaled $1,250 a month. That's above the SGA level still. It was even more above the SGA level in 2014. So his SSDI terminated in November of 2014. In January 2019, the cost of his transportation increased. Now it was $250 a month. He was still working at the same earnings level, $1,400 a month. Now his countable earnings were $1,400 minus the $250 ERWI, which equals $1,150 a month. That's below SGA. Stevie's had bipolar disorder since 2002. He requested EXR in February 2019. So please pause and return when you have an answer. And the answer is yes. Stevie appears to meet all those first seven criteria, and his earnings fell below SGA because of the increase in his early. But nonetheless, his earnings did fall below SGA as a result. Number 3, Aretha received SSI. She's worked full-time continuously since 2013, earning $3,500 a month or $42,000 a year gross wages. The 1619B threshold in Michigan is $36,552 a year in 2019. Aretha has had average medical expenses, so she doesn't qualify for an individualized 1619B threshold. That means her $42,000 a year earnings were above the 1619B threshold of $36,552 a year. Her SSI terminated in February 2014. She has no other income besides her earnings, has a bank account with $1,500 in it and no other resources. She left her job in June of 2019 due to a recurrence of severe depression, and that was the disability that entitled her to SSI in the first place. She requested EXR in July of 2019. So please pause. Remember to go through all 8 criteria on your cheat sheet and then return with your answer. And the answer for Aretha is no, because she stopped doing SGA and requested EXR too late, more than 59 months after her SSI terminated. And finally, number 4, Madonna received SSDI. She worked full-time and earned $1,500 a month without IRWs or subsidies continuously from August of 2014 to January 2019 when she was fired. Her SSDI was terminated in May of 2018. She received SSDI for depression, but has had no symptoms and has not taken any medication since 2017. She requested EXR in February 2019. So please pause and return with your answer. And the answer for Madonna is most likely she's not eligible for EXR because it appears she's medically improved. She's had no symptoms, even without medication, for 2 years. Let's talk about provisional benefits or provisional payments. When a person requests EXR, they have to go through a medical review to make sure that they're eligible, to make sure they have not medically improved. But before the results of that medical review, they can receive benefits while they wait for up to 6 months. These are called provisional benefits. And if the person's medical benefit has stopped, it will be restarted during the time that they get the provisional cash benefits. That would be Medicare restarting for Title II and Medicaid restarting for SSI. So you are reading and hearing this correctly. Even before they make a decision about whether you're eligible for EXR, they will give you provisional benefits while you wait for the result of the medical review. Now, the provisional benefit amount for somebody getting Title II benefits would be the same amount that they received from Title II when the benefit was terminated, plus any cost of living adjustments. Those are the annual increases that occur each year due to the cost of living that occurred after the termination, plus any upward adjustments that were based on person's earnings after termination. So if the person had higher than their average historic earnings after their Title II was terminated, those higher earnings could cause their SSDI or CDB, just SSDI benefit to increase as a result of earnings. So that's a provisional benefit amount for somebody on Title II. What about SSI? Well, the provisional benefit amount for someone on SSI would be calculated the same way as for anybody else getting SSI. You'd use the same formula. So provisional benefits start pretty quickly. If you get Title II or used to get Title II and you're requesting benefits back through EXR, provisional benefits can start the same month that you submitted a signed EXR request to Social Security. If you get SSI or did receive SSI and you request EXR, the provisional benefits can start the month after the month in which you requested EXR through a signed form. Now, in reality, the provisional benefit payments won't usually start immediately. It'll usually take a few months after the request, but they'll be retroactive to the month that they should have started. So when do provisional benefits stop, starting with Title II? So for people on Title II, the provisional benefits will stop in the earliest of three scenarios. Number one, the month that SSA mails the EXR decision to the person, or the month the person does SGA. They do SGA while waiting for the EXR decision, their provisional benefits would stop. Or the month that they got their sixth and final provisional benefit payment. Can't get more than 6 months worth of these provisional benefits. Now, it's important to note that if you're getting provisional benefits and you start doing SGA while you're still getting the provisional payments, your benefit will stop. And even if your earnings drop below SGA the next month, you will not get provisional benefits back. For SSI, the provisional benefits will stop the earliest of the month that Social Security mails a letter with the EXR decision, or the sixth and final provisional benefit payment, whichever of those comes first. Now here's the big question. Suppose you apply for EXR, you request EXR, you're waiting for the decision, you're getting provisional benefits, and then you get the decision, and the decision is, no, you're not eligible for EXR, let's say because you've medically improved. So you've been getting provisional benefits while waiting for that decision. If the decision is negative, does that mean you'll have to pay back the provisional benefits? And the answer is generally no. You don't have to pay back those provisional benefits even if you're found ineligible for EXR, with a few exceptions. If you continued to get provisional benefits after the month that the EXR denial notice was mailed, you'd have to pay back any provisional benefits you got after the month that letter was mailed. If you're asking for Title II benefits back through EXR and you do SGA in a month, if you continue to receive provisional benefits after that month, you'd have to pay those back because you weren't eligible for them. Or if you received provisional benefits that you knew or should have known you were not eligible to receive, such as if you were actually doing SGA during the month that you requested EXR. But with those exceptions, even if your EXR request is denied, you don't have to pay back the provisional benefits you get while you wait for that decision. So let's go through an exercise here. Here's Diana, who requested EXR in July 2019. She appeared to meet all the eligibility criteria. When should she start receiving provisional benefits? That's the first question. If Diana does not work and receives an EXR denial notice in November 2019, when should she receive her last provisional payment? And finally, if Diana receives an EXR approval notice in October 2019, what should happen to her benefits? So you can pause, see if you can answer these questions, and then restart the webinar. So, to answer the first question, when should she start receiving provisional benefits? The same month that she requested EXR, July 2019. That's how it works for Title II. Now, if she doesn't work, gets an EXR denial notice in November 2019, her last provisional payment should be November 2019, the same month. But if she gets an EXR approval notice in October of 2019, what should happen to her benefits? Her provisional benefits should stop, but then regular benefits would begin November of 2019. Let's ask a few more questions about Diana. If she gets an EXR denial notice in January 2020, when should she receive her last provisional payment? Remember, to answer that question, you need to know that she requested EXR and got her first provisional benefit payment in July of 2019. So if she gets an EXR denial notice in January 2020, when should her last provisional payment be? If Diana performs SGA in September 2019, before she receives a notice of her EXR determination, when should she receive her last provisional payment? And finally, if Diana's earnings fall below SGA in October 2019, if she already did SGA in September of 2019, should she receive a provisional benefit in October? So please pause now and return when you have some answers. Okay, so answer the first question is December 2019. That would be the 6th month that Diana got provisional benefits, and that's the limit. She can't get more than that. So even though she didn't get the denial notice until January, her last provisional payment would be December. That was the 6th month. Now, if Diana performs SGA in September of 2019 before she gets a notice of her EXR determination, then her last provisional payment should be August of 2019. She would not be eligible for a payment in September when she did SGA. And even if her earnings fall below SGA the next month, in October, she would not get provisional payments back again. Once they stop due to SGA, they stop for good. Provisional payments do not restart if you later fall below SGA. But she could still be approved for continuing benefits, for regular benefits through EXR. Okay, so let's talk about Medicare. What happens to Medicare during the provisional benefit period for Title II? Well, Medicare coverage continues during the provisional benefit period. If Medicare had stopped before provisional benefits began, then Medicare will restart, will be reinstated during the provisional benefit period. starting with the first month of provisional benefits. If EXR is approved, Medicare will just continue. But what happens to Medicare if EXR is denied? That depends. If the only reason the person is getting Medicare is through the provisional benefits, then Medicare will end when EXR is denied. Medicare will end the earlier of the end of the 6th month of provisional benefits or the end of the month after the month the EXR denial notice was mailed. But suppose the person has been getting Medicare all along, even after their termination, because they're in their extended period of Medicare coverage. If that's true, and if their EXR request is denied based on medical improvement, then Medicare will stop the end of the month after the denial notice is mailed. If the EXR denial is for other reasons other than medical improvement, then the Medicare can continue throughout the extended period of Medicare coverage. So this means there is a bit of a risk. If the person is eligible for Medicare through the extended period of Medicare coverage, and their EXR request is denied due to medical improvement, they will lose their Medicare sooner than they would if they didn't request EXR and were not denied. Because if they didn't request EXR, they'd keep the Medicare through the end of the extended period of Medicare coverage. Now, if the person's getting Medicare based on age, being 65 or older, or if they get it based on end-stage renal disease, based on kidney failure, then Medicare will continue after EXR is denied. What about Medicaid during the provisional benefit period for people on SSI? Well, if you're getting SSI payments through the provisional benefit period, then your Medicaid will be reinstated if it had already stopped, and it will continue through the end of the provisional benefit period. If the EXR request is approved, Medicaid will continue along with SSI payments. If EXR is denied, then Medicaid will stop unless the person qualifies for Medicaid through a different Medicaid group and enrolls in it. The initial reinstatement period is something that begins after the person's been approved for EXR. And it's the first 24 months after regular benefits begin, after EXR approval, in which the person is not performing SGA, if they're getting Title II benefits, or the first 24 months for people on SSI that they are either receiving SSI payments or they're eligible for 1619B. So these 24 months are not necessarily consecutive. It's going to be the first 24 months, though not necessarily in a row, that a person on Title II is not doing SGA, or the first 24 months, not necessarily consecutive, that a person on SSI is either getting SSI payments or is eligible for 1619B. Now, when a person on Title II is in their initial reinstatement period, to help them stay below SGA, they can use IRWIs and subsidies, but they're not allowed to use two work incentives called unsuccessful work attempts and income averaging. But they can use IRWIs and subsidies to help them stay below SGA so that they can finish their initial reinstatement period more quickly. A person on SSI can use the usual SSI work incentives to determine whether they'll get SSI payments during the initial reinstatement period. So the initial reinstatement period can include months when the person gets provisional benefits, months when they received retroactive benefits after EXR was approved, and months in which they get benefits after EXR approval. So what happens after the initial reinstatement period is completed, once a person's used up all 24 months? Well, for people on Title II, they get a new trial work period, a new extended period of eligibility, and a new extended period of Medicare coverage. And if they have their benefit terminated again due to SGA, they can request EXR all over again. Now, for somebody on SSI, if their SSI is later terminated because they're earning above the 1619B threshold again for at least 12 consecutive months, then after the initial reinstatement period, they'd have the ability to ask for EXR again. But as I said earlier, EXR is pretty rare for people on SSI. So back to Title II. What happens during the initial reinstatement period if a person does SGA in a month? Well, their Title II benefit will be suspended that month. They won't be eligible for a payment that month. If they have dependents who get benefits on their record, dependent children, dependent spouse, those benefits will also be suspended in that month. And the month in which they did SGA will not count as one of their 24 months of the initial reinstatement period. So the initial reinstatement period for Title II is kind of similar to the EPE, the extended period of eligibility. If you do SGA in a month, you don't get a cash benefit that month, it's suspended. If you don't do SGA in a month, you get the cash benefit, and that month would be one of your 24 initial reinstatement period months. Now, the initial reinstatement period is different from the EPE because it could continue indefinitely. Let's say that you just do SGA every month after your EXR is approved. You do SGA every single month. Well, you would not be completing any of your 24 initial reinstatement period months. Your benefit would be suspended each month, but it would not terminate. Now, if you get SSI and your SSI is suspended because of excess resources or unearned income, that month does not count toward the initial reinstatement period either. Now, during the initial reinstatement period, Medicare or Medicaid will continue even during months when cash benefits are suspended due to SGA for Title II or due to earnings for SSI. So let's go through a few more exercises. Here's Marvin, who requests EXR during his extended period of Medicare coverage. If his EXR is denied due to medical improvement, what will happen to Marvin's Medicare? If his EXR is approved, what will happen to his Medicare? Well, if you recall, if EXR is denied due to medical improvement, even though Marvin was in his extended period of Medicare coverage, his Medicare will stop. The end of the month after the EXR denial. If EXR is approved, then his Medicare will continue. Now, Anita requests EXR in March of 2019. Her Medicare stopped at the end of her extended period of Medicare coverage in January 2019 because she didn't want to pay the Part A premium and her earnings were too high for her to qualify for the Qualified Disabled Working Individuals, or QDWI program, which would have paid the Part A premium if she had been eligible for it. Now, will Anita receive Medicare during her provisional benefit period? If her EXR request is approved, what will happen to her Medicare? And if her EXR request is denied in June of 2019, what will happen to her Medicare? So you can pause, formulate your answers, and then restart the webinar. So Anita will receive Medicare during her provisional benefit period. If EXR is approved, her Medicare will continue. If EXR is denied in June of 2019, her Medicare will terminate the end of the following month, the end of July 2019. George requests EXR in August 2019. His EXR is approved in December 2019, retroactive to August 2019. If George does not perform SGA in August 2019 or later, when will his initial reinstatement period end? And when will he get a new trial work period? If George does SGA in some months but not others during his initial reinstatement period, what will happen to his SSDI payments? And if George does SGA every month after August 2019, when will his initial reinstatement period end? And will he get a new trial work period? So you can pause, take a moment, and return to the webinar when you're ready. So if George does not perform SGA at all in August 2019 or later, then his initial reinstatement period will be 24 consecutive months from August 2019 through July 2021. So when will he get a new trial work period? Right after his last initial reinstatement period month. So that would be August 2021. If he does SGA in some months but not others, he won't get his SSDI payments during months he does SGA, but he will receive them during months that he doesn't do SGA. But if he does SGA every month after August of 2019, then his initial reinstatement period will not end because he'd have to have 24 months of non-SGA work in order to complete the initial reinstatement period. So he would not have it end at all. And he would not get a new trial work period because he would not finish his initial reinstatement period. So suppose you get Title II benefits reinstated through EXR. When would they later terminate? Well, for Title II, they would terminate if you did SGA after your EPE and grace period, or if you medically improved, or if you reached full retirement age and your SSDI was automatically converted to Social Security retirement, or if your benefits were terminated for other reasons, such as you were a childhood disability beneficiary who married a spouse who doesn't receive Title II benefits. So how do you request expedited reinstatement? There's a form to fill out. For Title II, it's the SSA 371 form, a request for reinstatement for Title II. For SSI, it's the SSA 372 form, a request for reinstatement for Title 16 individual. Title 16 is another term for SSI. A person has to sign the form requesting EXR, and some other forms are usually needed as well, but this is the primary one. Now, a person who wants to get benefits back has a choice between asking for benefits through EXR and starting over with a new initial claim, a new application. Generally, EXR is going to be the better way to go. It's quicker, it's easier, and you can get those provisional benefits while you wait. There are some circumstances in which an initial claim, a new application, could be more beneficial, but the choice of options can be very complex. So this is something you should refer to a benefit planner. But generally, EXR will be better than a new application, initial claim. So what about appeals for EXR? Well, you can't appeal a decision about provisional benefits, but if you want to protest a decision about provisional benefits, you can ask Social Security to review the decision, and they will correct it if they find that it was incorrect. But if you're denied EXR, you do have appeal rights. You have to appeal generally within 65 days of the date on the notice denying EXR, or it could be later if you have good cause for missing the deadline. So why does expedited reinstatement matter? Well, it's a great add-on to the other SSDI work incentives, and this is the one that lets you get benefits back more quickly and easily, even if you've had benefits terminated, or even though you've had benefits terminated due to work. Now, a person who gets Title II benefits and is performing SGA regularly every month, they'll go through the trial work period and their EPE, their extended period of eligibility, and that offers 3 years and 9 months during which benefits are not terminated, even though they may be suspended during the EPE. The EXR adds an additional 5-year safety net. So even though benefits have terminated, if earnings later drop low enough or stop, you can request EXR to get benefits back more quickly and easily generally than reapplying. And finally, EXR provides those provisional benefits for up to 6 months while the person waits for Social Security to do the medical review to see if they'll be eligible for benefits to continue through EXR. So what is your role as a benefit to work coach regarding EXR? Well, if you're working with somebody who expects to have their benefits terminate because of work, they're going to be working full time, they're going to be earning well over SGA, and they anticipate they're going to continue doing that. They do expect their Title II benefits to terminate, or if benefits have already terminated due to work, you want to explain EXR as an option. Now, remember, EXR is going to be overwhelmingly the case for people on Title II benefits. It'll be rare for people on SSI. If a person you work with wants to request expedited reinstatement, always refer her or him to a benefit planner. And thank you very much for participating in this webinar.